At one point too, because my parents work so much, I remember in kindergarten I actually forgot Spanish, and my mom spoke Spanish. My mom speaks Spanish like almost exclusively.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Untapped Potential Podcast. I'm your host, Max Prado, and today we have a very special guest, Chris Navan. So Chris is actually a little bit more than just a special guest because, surprise, he's actually my new co-host, the new co-host for the Untapped Potential Podcast. Chris is a great guy. I met him when I was in college. We were actually roommates for a little bit. He was always really supportive when, the last iteration of the Untapped Potential Podcast, which I was recording while I lived with him. He's always super supportive. So, I'm really excited to bring him on, and he always has great vibes and great insights. So I think you're really going to like having, Chris as a co-host here.
I hope so.
I hope so. Yeah.
Get flamed in the comments.
Oh, man. A little bit about Chris. He's a first-generation college student. He got his bachelor's degree and his master's in business administration from Washington State University. And once he got that, he decided to move to Seattle, where he worked in supply chain for aerospace and tech companies. And just recently, he actually started a clothing brand by the name of Dripped, which stands for Don't Relent Your Pursuit Today, which inspires people to be relentless in the pursuit of what sets their soul on fire. His brand actually also donates 5% of sales to first scholarships for first-generation college students. So he's always giving back and looking for ways to help people that were in the same position that he was when he was in college. So that kind of tells you a little bit about the guy. Chris, I'm really happy to have you here. How you feeling, man?
Dude, I'm feeling good, man. Thank you for having me, and thank you for allowing me to join you on this journey. I think it's going to be pretty exciting, man. It's been a long time coming. We've been planning this for months. I think it was ended January?
Yeah, a few months.
Something like that? Yeah. And so it took this amount of time to get all the equipment. We have a full setup here. We got somebody, Money Mitch, our old roommate, monitoring the audio. We got tons of lights set up, a bunch of cameras.
Yes,
dude,
sir.
This is a legit production.
I mean, yeah, y'all can't see this behind the cameras, but there's lights. There's 3 very bright lights in our faces. We got these nice microphones. We got the backdrop. We're really doing this, and I'm really happy that I'm doing it with you, man. So
yeah,
let's get
likewise,
this,
man.
And, I'm kind of stuck with you, so I guess I got to be happy with you. But no, I kind of want to dive a little deeper. I guess, the purpose of this episode is going to be to kind of introduce you a little bit. People know me pretty well, I think, at this point, because I've done this podcast for a while. This is kind of just a reboot. So introducing you as a co-host, I think we got to get to know you a little bit. So I kind of want to know where you come from and a little bit about your family story. So if you can tell me, a little bit about, your parents and your upbringing, where you're from and all that, that'd be cool.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, my name is Chris, but people call me Vegas because I'm from Las Vegas. I grew up there. And I grew up there since I was 5. We moved from California to Vegas, and I grew up as an only child. I wasn't raised with any brothers or sisters. So, from between 5 years old to 18, I was living there. And to be honest, people think it's crazy living there. It's not super crazy living there.
It's party time, man. It's Vegas.
People think it's like, you're on the strip or whatever, going to clubs, underage. Dude, none of that.
No.
None of that happened. And I think I probably had the most boring childhood because I didn't have anybody else to hang out with. There wasn't the neighborhood kids that I could really hang out with because my parents were always working.
Yeah.
My mom worked 2 jobs at one point. And so when I got home, nobody was there.
Yeah.
I couldn't really play outside, in the street and hang out with the neighborhood kids until my parents got home, which at that point everybody was already having dinner.
Yeah.
And so I just had a lot of free time on my hands, and like we were talking about earlier, it led to a lot of skills that I developed just through the course of just being bored.
Yeah.
That somehow through this journey that I've had, it ended up being really useful later in life, and even some of the things that I do for this business too. I'm still using. And those were things that I developed when I was like 14, 15 years old, which is pretty crazy.
So where are your parents from?
So my mom is from Michoacan, Jiquilpan, Michoacan. And she in Mexico,
right.
Yep. And she immigrated here from the U.S. back in the 80s under the Reagan administration.
Shout out to Reagan.
Yeah, because I mean, whatever program that she was a part of, she came here, legally, and she was able to get that all squared away through legal means, and not to discount like any other people's experiences or whatever, but like I was just really thankful that my mom was able to go through that process. Right. And my dad actually was born here in the U.S., but he grew up in New Jersey. But his mom immigrated from Puerto Rico, which is obviously a U.S. territory now. And so, long story short, my dad went into the Navy at an early age. My mom immigrated from Mexico to work in California. She was working in, I think it was the Marriott. And after my dad had left the Navy to lead a civilian life, right. He ended up working as a security guard for the Marriott, and that's how kind of they met.
That's a cool love story.
Yeah,
they met at work.
Yeah,
that's cool, man. That's cool. So so you're like, I mean, your parents are like the first generation Americans, right? Mm-hmm. In a sense, and then you're kind of like that second generation American. Right. I mean, I don't even know. You probably technically count as first generation too, right? Because you're the first to be born.
Yeah, I don't know how it works with like mixed generations, because my dad is, I guess, right, his first generation. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'll call myself first generation.
I think you're first generation. No, that's cool. So I think that's really cool, because you're actually, as far as going to college, you are first generation. So that kind of leads into that. So can you tell me a little bit about that? I think you had humble beginnings, right? Because you were raised by two parents who didn't have a college education. They were working, not salary jobs, but hourly jobs, and just, making a living and raising you, the only son. So how was that? What inspired you to go to college, and kind of tell me a little bit about that journey for you?
Yeah, honestly, when I look back at my childhood, the thing that my parents, despite the fact that they didn't complete like a 4-year degree or never went to college or whatever, they instilled really early on that education was super important. And I remember growing up, my dad had given me PC software. It was called like Kickstarter or First Jumpstart, like first grade. It was something like that, where basically it was like it had like a computer game like shell, but it was like an educational software. Yeah. And he bought all the grades, like, first, second, third, like basically as a supplement to my education I was receiving in school.
Gotcha.
And at one point too, because my parents worked so much, I remember in kindergarten I actually forgot Spanish, and my mom spoke Spanish. My mom speaks Spanish like almost exclusively. And the fact that like I was going to school, I went to kindergarten and I didn't even speak any English. I had to like learn on the spot. It took me, I think they said it was like 2 or 3 months for me like actually get
like
it.
Like ESL.
Yeah.
Like they put you in a separate room with all the kids who didn't
I don't even think
English,
they did
wasn't
that.
It like that?
I think it was just like a regular kindergarten classroom.
Gotcha.
And so anyway, so I learned English on the spot, and just growing up like through education, I was like in school a lot, and like just through like with these programs or whatever, I was learning. Yeah. At one point I completely forgot Spanish.
That's crazy.
That is crazy, because, and I feel bad too, because my mom works so much. Like I hardly like ever saw her like really young, because she would come home like super late. And it was like at some point, like with just consuming all the content from like the TV, like English television, right. I just forgot, man. And then, I had to learn everything, but, it was really like the educational software that, they really instilled in me up front. They also incentivized me to learn. So one of the things that they knew I was really obsessed with was like video games and stuff. And so they were like, well, for every A, you get one video game. And I was like, oh, yeah.
I'm going to get all the A's.
Oh, yeah. Bet.
Yeah.
And so at one point, my dad was like, well, we're going to change the rules so that if you get one A a quarter or semester, whatever it was, then we'll get you a video game, because I got so many A's.
And that's on good parenting right there, man.
Yeah.
They put like, an incentive for you to do well.
Right, it's that positive reinforcement. I think that really made a difference.
That's
and then
important.
When I went into middle school, like I was continued to be challenged, and my parents were like, "You need to go into like this high school called Advanced Technologies Academy. It's a magnet school in Las Vegas, Nevada." And for those of you that don't know what magnet schools are, they're essentially it's like a college prep type of school.
I don't know what a magnet school is, so it's a college prep. Okay.
Yeah, and it's like one that you have to apply to get in. So it's a public school, but they have like very specialized programs. Like my school was specialized in computer graphic design, architecture, engineering, things like that.
So a STEM, like very STEM based.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. And you said you got to qualify. Was it based on grades and like a few other things maybe? Or?
It was exclusively based on grades and a lottery system. So so they had like a minimum grade acceptance, and then essentially whoever got picked out of that pool. Gotcha. At first they rejected me. I was a little salty.
Oh yeah, for grades?
No, they rejected me because I wasn't picked out of the lottery.
You just didn't get lucky.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? These guys, like, at one point I told my dad, like, I'm just going to go to my zoned high school. And he's like, no, you're going to go to this place. Because they had followed up a couple of months later saying, oh, yeah, there's a spot that opened if you want to take it.
Gotcha.
And I ended up going there. And that's where I learned graphic design. That's where I learned how to do video editing and built those basic skills because I thought – because I like to draw, right?
Yeah.
And I thought I was going to be like a graphic designer when I went to college and graduate. Like I thought that was going to be my
like
career
video
path.
Games.
Yeah, like video games or like video game artwork or things like that.
Yeah.
And I was really obsessed with that skill set. I was really good at it.
Nice.
And when I like left high school, I was like trying to research what my major would be in college. And I realized that I wouldn't make a lot of money as a graphic designer.
You said, I'm not doing this.
I was like, well, fuck that. No, I'm going to make some money.
That's what it comes down to, though, right? You're putting so much time to, not be paid enough to do it. It's like, I'll just do it on the side or something if it comes down to it, right?
Yeah, and even then, too, like when you look at from the cost of education and like...
student loans.
Yeah, student loans. I couldn't, like I had scholarships, right? But it didn't cover all my tuition or costs of going to school there. So I had to take out loans. And, if you try to just balance the trade-off of, how much you have to spend in loans to get your degree and what the job opportunities are and how much you're going to get paid, like at some point you just have to make the decision to say, well, is it worth it for me to make that investment in that education if I'm going to find it difficult to pay for that later on?
Yeah.
And it's crazy because I was just thinking about these things naturally as I was making a decision to choose my major. But nobody, and this is the tough thing with like first generation people, is nobody really knows who to go to. Like my parents never went to college, so they told me to they really encouraged me to do whatever I wanted.
Right.
But without like the lens of like the financial implications, right? Like what is that going to be? There's like, for me, like there was really nobody for me to go to with that experience of, what it's like to be a first generation person going to college and trying to make a decisions as to what to do with your career. Like I didn't have that guidance. And so, I guess I was really fortunate just thinking about that like really early on and making the decision to go into business when I went to WSU.
That's smart. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. And so why did you choose WSU? You were in Vegas, right? So you're in a whole other state. You're in Nevada. I mean, it's kind of on the same coast, but why WSU?
So it's funny. I got a postcard in the mail from WSU. So that marketing actually worked.
They got you.
Yeah. No, and it goes a little bit more than that. So as, we talk about like the cost of education, again, this was more than 10 years ago I was looking at it. And so imagine like how much things cost now. When I was looking at the cost of education, California was just way too expensive, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no way I'm going to be paying that much more for the same degree somewhere else,
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
I didn't want to stay and go to UNLV because I just wanted to leave home. And not only that, some of the scholarships that I had weren't eligible for in-state schools. They encouraged me to go out of state.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to go to Arizona because I felt like it was another desert, and I knew I wanted to stay West Coast. And so once I got that postcard, I looked into WSU. I really just learned more about the school, more about the business programs, the type of education that they offered within the School of Business.
Right.
And I knew like I wanted to do something that was more globalized, and so I leaned towards international business because I knew eventually like I wanted to travel and like do all that stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how much of a pain traveling for business actually is.
Yeah, man.
But at the time I was like, oh, this is cool. This is something that I think I want to do.
Yeah.
And I already moved past like the dream of doing graphic design because of what we talked about of just finding it difficult to find a high-paying career and making a high-paying career out of graphic design.
Right.
It's not to say that can't happen, but at the time when I was researching and like making that decision, it seemed a lot more difficult than it would be for me to just shift into business and find success in that.
It was higher risk at the time.
Exactly.
And I mean, as what were you, like 18 years old when you graduated?
17, yeah.
You know, I think now we're older, we make a little bit more high risk decisions, but at that age, like you want to be a little safer, right? Especially as a first generation college student. It's like, if I don't make it, like who's going to help my parents? They're getting older. It's like, I gotta, I'm not just playing with my life. I'm playing with like my family's life. Like I'm trying to make a living for all of us. Right.
Right. So you almost like want to take the safer bet.
Yeah.
In that sense. And I think there's pros and cons to like each decision, right? Yeah. And so I think it ultimately comes down to like, what do you find fulfillment out of it? Or what do you find fulfillment out of, whether it's, a career in business or, do you really want to do graphic design? And sometimes it might be worth it in the long run to do what makes you happy.
And that's something I want to touch on too, because I think that's one of the things about being first gen is you don't have the privilege of, let's say if you had parents that, had money, they both have like their PhDs or whatever, typically, and not talking down on people who are in that situation because that's great. But when you're in that situation, you have the privilege of being able to say, you know what, I'm going to take a year off. I'm going to travel the world, get to know myself, maybe go into the arts or something. When you're first generation, your family is literally looking at you as like the way out. Like,
right.
This kid is going to go to college, get a job, and hopefully he can make enough money where like he can help us get out of, this, these 12-hour shifts or these long jobs that, this labor that takes a toll on your body.
So Dripped Clothing Company, how'd that start? What made you want to start a clothing brand?
So I'll kind of take a step back and just go through kind of my path. So I was always curious around like just general how things worked. I was always trying to figure out ways to achieve a specific goal, whether it was like financially or just merit based, like I accomplished something I like to create things. And so ever since I was young, I went to high school for graphic design, and I went to college prep high school, like a magnet school. And for those
good
of you,
school.
Yeah, so one of those good schools that you have to like apply to and you have to get accepted to get in. And I think that's what jump started my like creativity. Not knowing that later down the line it was going to lead to eventually using that same skill set to create the stuff that we do today. Initially, when I was in high school, I thought I wanted to be a graphic designer, and financially, just looking at what the salaries and stuff like that, just really early on, as I was looking at colleges and places to go to get that type of education, financially, I thought that the trade-off was just too low for me to take that much of a financial risk, take out a bunch of loans, and be struggling to pay that. I know a lot of people can make it work for sure.
Yeah.
But I just thought that it would be in my best interest and my family's best interest for me to just move into a business. And I always was curious about business too. So I had like a creative side. And I had a really business-driven side where when I was like 15 years old, I couldn't find a job. I used to, do these like surveys online to get free stuff. And so I was always trying to figure out ways to make money or to get things, not trying to scam people out of stuff, obviously. But so I was always creative, curious, learning about different things. I went to college. I went to WSU, Washington State University, go Cougs. And that's where we met, first of all. You came in right as I was leaving grad school. And I thought that when I left that university, I would just be like working for corporate and like kind of moving up the ladder. But over the years, as I've been working more and more in that corporate environment, I found it less fulfilling every time I got promoted, every time I accomplished that next goal. I felt unfulfilled because although, financially, it might be great, I wasn't really doing what I enjoyed. And that just went on for years. And it got to the point early last year in January where I thought, I'm really just not happy, man. I'm working a lot of hours. There'd be sometimes I'd be leaving the office at like 9, 10 at night. And it was really difficult. And I thought to myself, what does my career path look like, 5 years from now if I were to continue down this path? And I just saw that it would just lead to a lot more of that, but also more burden, more pressures. And ultimately, again, I wasn't doing things that were fulfilling me. And so I decided to leave my company. And just a backstory, I worked at tech companies, like big tech companies in the Seattle area. And so I really got some great experience there. I don't regret any of my years at those companies at all, because it really built the foundation and allowed me to think bigger. But at the end of it, I was just really trading hours of my life for money, and I wasn't really getting the fulfillment out of it. And so I left in January 2020. I had a job lined up in March 2020. And then obviously COVID hit. And I found myself unemployed for a longer period of time than I thought. I was actually unemployed for 7 months. And
crazy.
Yeah, it was a long time. And for those of you that are like struggling to find work, and just to quickly just touch on that, don't give up, keep your head up. Eventually something's going to come and you'll find the right opportunity. And eventually when, I did find a full-time job, I found a great team, and I'm really happy where I'm at today. But just to kind of touch on like that period between roles, I found myself really, not only, I guess, how would I say it? I found myself like not knowing when that next opportunity would be. And so like when you're put in those situations, it gets to you mentally. And when you're at like 15-16% unemployment rate, some of the highest in history of the United States, you don't know when that opportunity is going to come, if it's going to come. And, for my education, I have a master's degree in business, international business degree as my bachelor's. And the experience with working for a bunch of tech companies in the Seattle area. And so even with that, I was still struggling to find work, and I thought to myself, well, I was already thinking about starting this company, this headbands company. Initially, Drip started as a headbands company. I don't know if people know that. And when I had started this, I started this back in April 2019. I had this idea basically 2 years ago. Wow. Yeah, it's been 2 years ago now. I had this idea because I found it so hard to find headbands that I needed to go to the gym with. And I was just finding it so difficult. And I found these ones on Amazon, and they weren't really great quality. And I realized that there was a lot of scarcity in the market for that type of product. And to give a little bit of context as to what I did in my professional career, I used to work in supply chain, inventory management, and just kind of led a bunch of initiatives to drive growth to the business. And so I had that supply chain background, which is really critical for me to connect with people who can actually make the product. And so long story short, I had all the experience I needed. I just needed to apply it to something. And again, going back to what I talked about early on, growing up, I was always curious, always wanting to do things and create things.
Right.
I thought it would be a perfect opportunity to marry like my creative side and also the business side.
Yeah.
And apply it to something that could eventually like help me find that fulfillment I was looking for in life.
Right.
And I started, I came up with that idea around April 2019. And since then I began working with lawyers, setting up an LLC, and it took a really long time to find the right name. Because there's just, you don't want to like create a name without, doing your research if other brands are using that name. That just creates a lot of financial risk. And so I knew that I had to figure out the name first, and that took a couple months. Had to find the right suppliers that would be willing to do that. That took a couple months. And so I was working from between April all the way up until I left that job in January 2020, regarding that idea. Right. And my whole thought was like, yeah, I'll probably start this around like April 2020. Like that was like my initial goal. But then again, COVID hit, I was unemployed. And I had to make a choice. I was like, should I risk, the little money I have to go apply it to this crazy idea of, who the hell would buy freaking headbands, like create a headbands business? Like people will create apparel, create shirts, like something that's, more secure and like, I guess more in demand and more safe.
Right.
But I thought it was just such a unique idea. And the product like is super great, super soft headbands. And I really enjoyed using them.
Oh yeah.
I thought like, why not just go for it? And so, in the middle of a 16% unemployment rate, not knowing when I would get that next opportunity, I put all bets on myself and just went full steam on it. And so that's how kind of we started. And then I was working on that basically full time between April and June 2020. And then we launched January 1st.
Man, that's awesome. How was that? Like going from it just being an idea to the launch? How was it for you seeing that?
There's a lot of emotions that come with that. One is, am I doing the right thing? Am I because I had to spend quite a bit of money to get everything set up. Like a lot of people don't realize it, but the custom bags that we use, like the poly bags that we mail product in, the inserts, the actual production of the products, making sure that the quality of our final product met the samples that we received. Working around like the logistics of how do we ship things to people, setting up the website was a big one, and just the development around that. So there was a lot of emotions like when I first started that left me wondering, is this the right thing to do? Right. Just because there's just so much risk involved, but at the same time, you don't really the thing I like to say to myself is you don't realize your full potential until you push yourself to that limit. And then you eventually grow from that experience, whether you tried something and failed or tried something and eventually succeeded. Both of those experiences are equally important for you to grow as a person. And so I just continued on that path. I also had, my moments of doubt of just thinking about what if this doesn't take off? I just spent all this money and stuff. And again, you just have to go for it, and you have to really commit that if you feel strongly about something and you want it to succeed, and all you have to, and you have everything in place, you planned it out accordingly, you have all the right pieces in place to execute. All you have to do is just try it. Then you really have nothing to lose at that point. The only thing that you can lose, obviously, is the financial piece, but more than anything, what you gain out of it just from an experience and a learning will help you develop into the person that eventually you will find that success.
Right. I like what you said right there. You said that you have to kind of embrace those moments of failure because they're just as important as the moments of success, because you kind of learn from your mistakes and you become better. I know there's a lot of people out there that maybe have been thinking about starting their own business, have, had this idea, had this passion, and it's kind of just been lingering there, but maybe they don't want to do it because they're afraid of failure.
Right.
What kind of advice do you have for those people, the people that want to start their own business, but they're kind of on the edge?
I would say, and one of our good friends, Carlos Sanchez, Real Vlogs is his Instagram handle, brought this up a while back to me. And the thing that separates really good brands, really good businesses, is they have a really strong why. They have a purpose, essentially. They understand what they want to accomplish, what their social impact or motivation is.
Right.
And they have a really strong understanding of what they want to accomplish.
Yeah.
If you're just going to start a business to generate, like starting a dropship business, I know that's a really popular thing to do nowadays. There's a lot of YouTube videos on that, but there are very little people who can be successful on that and sustain that success for a long period of time. And it all goes back to not having a specific purpose or a why behind that brand to help build that sustained progress as a business and keep building on that success.
Right.
If it's just like a one-off product, it's not going to resonate as much with people. You might make a quick buck out of it, but really what will help you stand out from the rest is understanding what your purpose is as a business, what you want to do to help impact those around you or your communities around you. Have a really strong social purpose. And more than anything, understand where you want to be 5-10 years from now. Because with Dripped, I already knew that we would release apparel spring of 2020 before we even launched. I had that framework built out in my head. I already have my 5 and 10 year roadmap. Again, they're just big milestones at this point, but I know what I want to achieve. And if you don't know what you want to achieve or what you want your business to look like in the next 5-10 years, or if certain obstacles come up, or there's certain challenges presented to yourself that you can't anticipate or you can't pivot from, then you might not be in the right place to start a business.
That's a good point.
And in addition to that, the other thing I want to touch on is that business that you start, you have to find fulfillment out of it, and it has to resonate with you deeply. For me, Dripped is a culmination of all the years I spent as a graphic design student in high school. I also did a lot of video editing in high school. I used to record music videos for local bands for a little bit.
Oh, that's cool.
And that's how I got my editing skills there. I also continued to learn from that too. And so just know that everything that you do related to your business, I find pride in and I find real fulfillment out of. It's a lot of work, but at the same time, I enjoy doing it. And so if you find yourself doing a lot of work for this business and you don't really enjoy it, then that might not be the right business for you.
Yeah, that's cool. And I can see everything that you just said. I can see that you've implemented that with Drip, like from the purpose, don't relent in your pursuit today, to the attention to detail you have in it, and also just how much fun I see you having with it. I've been a part of the photo shoots. I've been a part of kind of, you run ideas by me, and like I could just see how happy you are when you're working on it. So I think that's really cool. Like you don't just talk about it, you're actually doing it, and you've been doing it for how long has Drip been around now? Almost a year, right?
Yeah, almost a year. We get our 1 year anniversary this July.
All right, so far you've dropped headbands, your core business. You dropped hoodies in the fall, and tell me a little bit about the newest drop.
Yeah, so the newest drop is the statement tee. So you're wearing our white version. This is the black version, the vintage black. Yeah, if you want to show the back off real quick. The back is made with illustrations that I designed, and so what I did was I wanted to show off Seattle because we're a Seattle-based brand, and so you'll see an homage to our Mission hoodie, which we released in November, and then Pike Place Market, and then our Drip branding. It's our first t-shirt drop. It's made with 100% combed and ring spun Egyptian cotton, so it's super soft, and it's made with sustainable organic cotton too. So we partnered with a supplier that is really focused around the environment and reducing the environmental footprint from supply chain of fashion. So super excited to finally drop this. We just dropped it on Friday.
Cool. Yeah, and so it's in 2 colors, right? It's the one that you have on and the one that I have on, the black and the white.
Right. Yeah. 2 colors. And yeah, hopefully if it goes well, we'll start creating more colors for it.
Cool. Yeah. And so where can people find Dripped? Where can people see your whole catalog?
Yeah, so if you go on www.dripped.co, DRYPT.co, you'll have access to our full website there. Currently, we have the mission hoodie 15% off, and then you'll see the statement tee. And if you want to check us out on Instagram, our handles are going to be in the description, but it's going to be at dripped.co, DRYPT.co. We also have a Facebook and a Twitter if you want to, and a TikTok if you guys want to hit us up there. But yeah,
TikTok, man, you're with that new generation stuff too.
You got to, man. You got to now.
Nice. Cool. Well, Chris, it's been great talking to you about your brand, and I'm really excited to have you as a co-host on the podcast.
Appreciate it, man.
We'll all be seeing a little bit more Chris, a little bit more about myself moving forward. So yeah, thanks for coming on. Everybody, if you're interested in learning more about Dripped, like he said, their social media handles will be in the description. We'll have new Untapped Potential Podcast episodes uploaded every Monday. So please like, subscribe, and catch us next time.